So it is 2024 and I am 33 years old. And as much as I'd hate to say, I have never been in a relationship before. And I don't particularly feel sad about that. I mean, do I feel like I've missed out on a very valuable experience? Yes and no. Let me explain. So a lot of the people around me, they're either millennials or Gen Zs, and I feel that dating for us it's just screwed up. Though I do feel that there are some 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, some that I personally know that have a hard time finding love. Whether they're divorcees or widows, they just have as tough as the time as we do as millennials and Gen Zs. But before I get ahead of myself, let me get on to my story of my early years of one-sided love. So like I said in my previous videos, I was raised in a pretty dysfunctional family, but I was also raised on Disney. And what happens in Disney is we always have that lead male character that does his best in order to woo the lead female character, which she eventually falls in love with, right? So I would like to say that I was that leading male character that eventually gets the girl, but I can't. I was worse than that. I was afraid to talk to the girls I even had crushes on. So if you don't know already, I grew up in a low-income household. I didn't get an allowance or anything like that. And the first time I earned money was when I was 16. That's when we were legal to work. And I did manual labor. I worked at shipping and receiving at a really big company in Canada called HBC, which is the Hudson Bay Company. I do not know if they're still alive because the last I heard, I think they went bankrupt. I don't know. But anyways, that was the first time I earned money. But up until that point, I always had the mindset of how can I date anyone? I don't have any money in order to take a girl out on a date. My mindset was in order to date, you need money, which I did not have. So that's a big reason of why I never dated anyone in high school. And I'm not quite sure how I adopted that mindset. I think it's because growing up, whenever my dad took us out to a restaurant to eat, he was always the one that footed the bill, right? So I had that mindset of the guy must pay for everything. And luckily, my mom was the financial controller of the household. So she would be really good at picking out restaurants that were either cheap or they had deals. But the problem is that throughout all of high school and university, what I noticed was that the girls that I'd like, they would always be wearing brand name items, having brand name handbags and everything. And the thought that ran through my mind was, I can't afford these girls. And I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say, it's 2024, well, at least now it is. People can pay their own way. And I agree, people can pay their own way, but for me, how I was raised, I just don't operate like that. I would say that I'm pretty old-fashioned in that if I ask you out, then I'm gonna expect me to pay for an entire night out. So that's pretty sad, isn't it? Well, I'd be happy to say that when I turned 20, I did a whole complete 180. I got so many girls. Well, that's at least what I want to say. Actually, I got my heart broken and I got destroyed. So if you're in your 20s or your 30s, heck, even if you're maybe in your 40s and your 50s and you're doing a lot of dating right now, but all you feel is you feel empty inside. You're in bed with a guy or a girl and you're right there staring up in the ceiling and you're thinking to yourself, WTF am I doing here? Well, you gotta listen to this story because that was me 6 years ago. So early in my 20s, there's this one tip I want to share with you that I wish I would have learned earlier, but it was only until 27 that I heard you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with. And in my 20s, I hung out with the wrong crowd, I would say. I would say that I didn't know how to pick my friends, because the people I picked were the group of guys who I thought were really cool because they were out picking up girls, they were drinking, partying, etc. And I wish I made better choices. But you know, it's no use crying over spilled milk. But you know, that was how I was introduced to casual dating and hookup culture. Like, one of my friends back then was gay and another friend was really good looking. So they were going through partners like a bag of Doritos, and you know how fast you go through a bag of Doritos? Like that. So that was the group I was in, and that created a conflict because here I was exposed to this Western culture, this new idea of casual dating and hooking up, when how I was raised in a traditional Chinese culture. And holy crap, you guys, look at all these. I don't know if they're cicadas or cockroaches, but they're everywhere. I was distracted by all these cicadas, and all these birds are just feeding. But anyways, so there I was exposed to hookup culture, and with my traditional Chinese upbringing, hooking up and casual dating is a big no-no. That is something that is frowned down upon, right? So, I mean, even divorce is a very big taboo to talk about. You just don't do it. So there I was, being a Chinese-born Canadian, growing up in Western culture, but with traditional Chinese values. There was a huge conflict because for me, a part of me inside was like, I don't want to do this hookup stuff. It feels very dirty. But another part of me was surrounded by these influences where guys were hooking up, doing casual dating, and they had all these stories to tell around the dinner table, and I was just sitting there just listening. So I had nothing to share, and I just felt left out. So these days my parents are getting old, and I'm trying to go home as much as possible. And when I go home, I catch up with my high school friends, and my high school friends, a lot of them have never left Vancouver. They just stayed in the city. And I grew up in a high school where everybody was Asian. So everybody were children of immigrants, and everybody were kind of raised with the same value. There was no hookup, casual dating. People were pretty serious. And when I go back, you know, I see friends who have just been together since high school, you know, high school sweethearts, or they've been dating the same person for 8 to 10 years to finally get married and have kids, start a family. So that's how it's like. And when I leave that environment and go back and hang out with my other friends who are in that hookup and casual dating environment, they always look down on it. They always are like, it's such a shame to just have always been with one person their entire lives, you know. They have never experienced a different DICK or different PUSSY, right? So that's such a weird thing to think about, because for me, I think it's freaking beautiful that you have been with this one person and you have managed to make it last so long, especially in 2024. So I don't know. I often think to myself these days, I don't know if it was a good thing to leave Canada, leave the country, leave my hometown, because on the one hand, the pro is that I learned a heck of a lot about myself. On the other hand, it's pretty lonely, because if I had stayed ignorant, then maybe I'd be in the same position where my friends are, and have a partner and found love. And that's always kind of been the conflict that I've had recently. I managed to figure out the problem of why when I liked a girl, she didn't like me, and why when I didn't like a girl, she liked me. That was a doozy to figure out. But another issue that I found running jaywalking was that as a man, as Donald, I took the longest time for me to realize that I really liked girls for their body. And that's just men being visual creatures. And it took me the longest time to kind of separate that pattern from looking at who they are as a person. And I found that out through jumping in bed with a woman too early, and then you're laying there with her sleeping on your arm and you're just staring at the ceiling, thinking to yourself, WTF am I doing here? So we're at Trinity Metro. I just came back from Tucker Carlson Live because he did a show here in Fort Worth and my friend got me tickets, and you don't say no to free tickets. But anyways, the train ride back to Dallas is about, what, like an hour, 30 minutes. So I got a lot to do, might as well seize the moment and make a video. But anyways, let's go back to the story. So I was there with a girl sleeping on my arm, couldn't feel my arm, it was this arm, and I was staring up at the wall saying, WTF am I doing? I was thinking, is this it? Is this all that those guys that I admired was raving about? Because I don't feel anything. I feel empty AF. And at that time, I was seeing her, the girl on my arm, and another girl. And this other girl was the one that I really wanted. We were not at the level where we were intimate with each other. I mean, if you consider a kiss intimate, then it is intimate. But I felt like she was the one that I really wanted. So there's the train, and there's this guy's butt crack. That's Texas. So with this other girl, nothing really happened with her. That is what you call a situationship with the Gen Zs. We only made out, and that's as far as we ever went. But I saw a future with her. I don't know if you ever felt that way when you see a future with someone, and it was just pure going through it with my heart. Long story short, what I found out was she was also seeing someone else, and she decided to commit to that someone else, and that broke my heart. And yes, back then, the life what I was living was a mess, so she made absolutely the right choice, because even I wouldn't have gotten into anything serious with me at that time. So the train just left, just like that girl in my story. It was also around that time when I had a paragliding incident. So I was hit with a bomb in both ends. I had a paragliding incident, which gave me some PTSD, and the girl that I really liked decided to go with someone else. So I was destroyed. I was hit at rock bottom, and I didn't know what to do. I just became a zombie for several months, actually. And then I hopped on YouTube. That's how I found Red Pill content. And while I would credit Red Pill content as teaching me some differences between men and women, overall, generally, I think Red Pill content is just trash. So if you're in the same situation, just skip the Red Pill content. What it did lead me to was more self-development, personal development content, kind of like Tony Robbins, Napoleon Hill, Dale Carnegie, Zig Ziglar. That content really did help a lot, but they only helped for a time. So even with all the personal development, I still harbored a lot of anger for that girl who picked this other guy over me. And I really think that the Red Pill content intensified that, because the Red Pill community it's pretty toxic, let me tell you. Because all the influencers on that always say something like, oh, you shouldn't date single moms, girls with tattoos, girls with a high body count, and etc. And you know what happens when you start adopting that mindset? You actually start attracting the worst people in your life. The type of people where you really have to watch your back with. So with all the personal development, I was still attracting the wrong people in my life, and I was still feeling empty. And then came him. He was tired of my BS and told me to get my crap together. And he has been with me for 31 years without me even noticing it. And he's been there protecting me from all the people that would have been bad for me. Like girls that I really liked but were really not good for me. He protected me from that. And his name was Jesus Christ. Now, I'm not going to get preachy because I know religion is a touchy subject, but I am going to tell a story. So on January 1st, 2023, I had a revelation. I was sick of feeling empty inside, and I knew I needed to change. So I decided to go to church every single Sunday for the year of 2023. That was my New Year's resolution for 2023. Go to church every Sunday. Why did I pick go to church every Sunday? Well, that's because when I had my accident and my heartbreak issue, the one thing that I did was I did visit a church down in Birmingham, Alabama, and that was Church of the Highlands. And I remember that during that time, I was just in rock bottom. I did not know what to do, but going to that church and worshiping really did uplift my spirits. So I decided to do that. I decided to give church a shot for 2023. I mean, I needed something to do. So I did that. I got involved in Passion City Church and their community groups. And then I fell into their small groups, which are called like family groups. So, you have a group of guys and a group of girls that meet separately. And I got involved into that. And then I got involved into serving. And the rest was history. But that whole thing didn't really change me as much as The Chosen did, which is a series about the life of Jesus Christ. And it was season 1, episode 8, where Jesus was having dinner with tax collectors and sinners. And in the Bible, this would be Matthew chapter 9, verses 10 to 13. And I just kept going back to this story because the story goes that Jesus was the perfect man who lived a perfect life, but he did not shun anyone. In fact, he went and invited anyone and everyone to his dinner table to have dinner with them, showing love to everyone regardless of background. So knowing that story, I took a hard look at myself. I am an imperfect man, an imperfect being. Who am I to judge who is worthy and not worthy of love? And guys, that is when everything changed. And then my behavior, my way of life, it was one way and then it was another. And then I realized, maybe, just maybe, love was hard to find because I was looking for it in every which way, in every which direction, when the whole time it was just right here in me.